My friend, you are in for a treat with the episode you are about to watch of the Profitable Nutritionist podcast, where my client, Kelly Dwyer, is going to bring you behind the scenes of what it is actually like to work with a full client load, which she has been doing as a nutritional therapist for the last 10 years. And her business journey is really interesting. She actually got started working in another physician's office and did that for 5 years before she eventually transitioned into her own private practice. And she has a lot to share about the ins and outs of what that actually looks like. What is an arrangement between a different practitioner and her supporting that person's clients? What does that look like? What does it look like actually creating your client process, delivering it, iterating it, changing it over time? And you might be really interested, I think is the word I want to use. You might be very interested to know that she actually works with kids alongside adults, and she has something to say about that as well. So, without further ado, I'm going to let Kelly take it away, but keep listening to this episode if you really want some help and some actual strategy on your client process and what that looks like or could look like in your practice. You're going to love what Kelly has to share. Kelly Dwyer, welcome to the Profitable Nutritionist podcast. I'm so excited that you're here.
Thank you. I'm excited that I'm on your podcast.
I mean, this is going to be so fun. We have a lot to talk about. Your business has changed a lot in the last few years. You have a lot of experience in working with clients. I know you have some takeaways that we're going to share. I don't even know where the conversation is going, but I know it's going to be amazing. So I'm excited.
Yay, me too.
She says with a look like, I don't know about this. Why don't you give everybody a little background on who you are and your amazing past life and past career and how you got to where you are today? Because I think that that will really set up everything else that we talk about.
Yeah. So I spent the first part of my career writing in journalism. I spent about 20 years, 10 the first 10 as a staff writer and then 10 as a freelance writer before I went to nutrition school in 2014. So, so I was a business reporter first in a B2B kind of environment with writing on telecom. And then I was at the Denver Post. Here I'm based in Denver. And then when my first son was born, I started freelancing, which just seemed like a better fit at the time.
I love it.
Plus,
So,
there
how
were
did you
kind of
get?
perks about, I mean, this is kind of a side note, but under things happen for a reason. I proposed a part-time schedule, essentially a demotion, so to speak, because I had been a beat reporter. I covered retail and real estate, and I essentially said, I'll be a general assignment reporter, but I want to work 3 days instead of 5. And I knew that with my current job, I wasn't getting home until like 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night sometimes. And I just wasn't going to that's not what I wanted things to look like with a new baby. And I put that forth, and they said no. And I learned later that it was an editor, a female editor, in a room of 8 people, of 8 editors, and she was the only female, that she was the one who said no, that I wouldn't know where my priorities were. So much for progressive journalism. But I went on to write from this cute little desk in my kitchen and write for bigger and better publications, made my own schedule, got familiar with the feeling of that. My son went to home daycare part-time. He was with me part-time, and it was awesome. So
Little did you know how much writing you could keep doing in your nutrition business later on, which I'm sure we'll
right.
talk about. So, how did you get into nutrition?
I freelancing was really, really fun. But as a lot of people know, journalism was changing. So we're talking about, I was doing that between like 2005 and I did write through regularly through nutrition school. Um, but between changes in the industry and just feeling a little isolated working from, a dank basement office after being in a lively newsroom where everything's a buzz all the time, it wore me down a little bit. Editors were coming and going a lot, lots of budget cuts in publishing, and at the same time there was sort of like, that was the professional side, and then on the personal side of my life, there's a lot of factors. When you asked me before about, um, what prompted this direction, I think a lot of people in our field had some sort of a health crisis or a family member has, and I am very fortunate that there wasn't something super serious. I did have some issues postpartum with my first kiddo and my second kiddo, um, in my body that got me paying attention to more health than I ever had. But there was a convergence of factors. I had always had an interest in nutrition, but then I was trying to look at, would an anti-inflammatory diet help my hip and back pain? And so I sort of got into that a little bit more. And then my writing at the time had kept morphing closer and closer, more away from business writing and more into health writing. And
Mm.
so, really, those last 4 or 5 years before I went to nutrition school, I was mostly writing health stories. And um, and I was just diving down rabbit holes all the time, figuring stuff out, have little kids, learning about BPA, writing about chemicals. Um, and I thought, you know what, if you're going to dive down all these rabbit holes, you're never going to get the kind of clear information that you would if you really got an education in in some
Yeah.
fashion in this world of health. And nutrition was just screaming out to me more than anything else. And then, from a professional standpoint, it felt really exciting to do something where I was actually the expert eventually, and not, as a journalist, you're perpetually the observer, you're perpetually asking questions and sort of learning a little bit about a lot of things, but not a lot about anything. So yeah, that kind of got me going.
Yeah.
So,
So you jumped into nutrition. You got, I mean, I know you went like through a pretty lengthy certification and education. And then what happened?
well, nutrition school was way harder than I thought it was gonna be. That was like biochem.
Yeah.
What?
I know
What?
what nutrition school you went to, so I kind of figured that was the case. Yeah. Like, holy cow.
It was not what I thought it was gonna be, and yet I loved every minute of it, and it was awesome. And I met a lot of cool people, and I had great instructors. I went to NTI, Nutrition Therapy Institute, here in Denver. They still do. They have a brick and mortar school, but they have a pretty sizable online presence. Like a lot of things, that's been kind of the direction.
Mhm.
Um, and it was fabulous. So I didn't, I went through the program a little bit slowly because I needed to work through that. And I had little kids. And so it was just one of those things where it took the time it took, which was a little over 4 years. And then, um, yeah, I finished up and started working. I both started my own, even when before I was finished. NTI used to actually have two certifications, and you could start working once you had the first. And so I had already launched my business, but I mean, kind of on paper, taking case studies, clients, things like that. Um, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. What was clear in my mind is I wanted to be collaborative. I missed, like I told you, I was in the dark little leaky spiders that would come in the window. And I was like, I didn't want to be isolated anymore. I'm an extroverted person and I wanted to be around people. So I was fortunate to get a position with a concierge medical practice, and I became his nutritionist. And that was really great experience because I got to see a large volume of people. The drawback was that one visit a year was free, or included, I should say, in the price that they paid the doctor to be a member. And so a lot of people would take that offer up based on the fact that it was free, but had no interest in actually working on their nutrition. And so I developed a thick skin, but I got in front of a lot of people. And I mean, one of the lessons with that was really, really helpful for me later when I was fully in my own practice and not working as a staff member there anymore. I would have these fabulous conversations with people who would tell me how much, you know, they benefited from our meeting, how much they learned. They can't wait to follow up with me. And I would never hear from them again. And I would even, I'd follow up with them. And it would be that 1 in 10 that was like, I mean, the minute they walked in the door, you could tell they were like, let's go. They sat down for that original meeting and they were just soaking it up. And when can I see you again? And what more can we do? And so it was a lesson in people's readiness. I mean, I think I've learned more later, especially through your program and my experience in my private practice, that there are times where people think that they're not ready because they're getting ready to get ready, like me in my business. Yeah, I mean, so there are times where people are ready, but it's a little different story for someone to book a discovery call with you by their own, they initiate that themselves versus the doctor's like, your A1C is getting high, you really should go see Kelly, and they come in arms folded, kind of like
begrudgingly. Yeah.
So, but it got me in front of a lot of people and a lot of different health conditions, and it was a great experience.
So what years were that, or like what time frame is that?
Uh, between 2017 and 2022. So I was in the office for 5 years. I launched my own business more robustly, I'd say, where I had my own office space and stuff outside of that. Probably 2018, shortly after starting with him, because I was only in there 1 day a week. And so
you
I
were
was
physically in his office, close to you, 1 day a week. And then the clients that you saw through him, were you paid by the hour there for the clients? Like just to give people an idea of what that payment structure can look like. And you don't have to give any figures specifically, but how did that work?
No, I will give figures because I got paid well for being a fresh out of school person in that environment, but it was still like $50 an hour, right? So not even close to what really our worth is, right? But if you look, I guess what I'm saying is if you look at the market for hiring people in an office like that who are fresh out of school, 50s, that probably was on the high end, at least for the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so you were paid on the people that you actually saw that came and
I was paid $50 an hour for anything I did. And the beautiful thing is I took advantage of that. I also taught classes to groups of patients. And when I would create the curriculum for each of those classes, I was billing them by the hour. So I was like, well, this is cool because, and it is because I have this library. Yeah, I've got this library of classes that, if you're purely doing it in your own business, that's not paid time. So, there were some benefits there. And then when COVID occurred, it was all hands on deck. And we did everything and anything and everything. So that was kind of madness. I mean, like that plays out in so many environments, but my reporting skills came back because we weren't finding answers about vaccine availability. And so I just got on LinkedIn and I started just personally messaging like the head of Denver Health and like the head of Blue Cross Blue Shield here. And just like, and they would actually reply. And it was really fun. And
the old skills came back.
Yeah. I was like, well, this is what I found out today. And they're like, who did you talk to? I'm like, well, I just messaged the CEO. And they're like, you did? I'm like, yeah, why not? Like, if they're not going to have answers. And that was the thing. Sadly, they didn't have a lot of answers because it was mayhem, as we all know. But yeah, so that was a great experience. Unfortunately, it lacked that collaboration that I was hoping for. It did get me in an office environment where I got to, walk by other people's offices and say, hey, what's up, and all that kind of fun stuff, water cooler talk. But the doctor, super smart and really supportive of me and really kind, but also very busy. And we would have conversations here and there about certain patients and next steps forward and how I can help, which I loved. But, I'm holistically trained and he's a more conventionally trained MD and who's very open to what I could bring to the patient, but we're kind of, on parallel lines more than intersecting. And during that time, when I was still, I started with him and I was finishing up at NTI and I had to do internship work. And I interned at a integrative medical clinic. And that did feel more collaborative. And I really liked that. And so my goal was ultimately to work in that kind of environment. And then at the same time, um, things were growing in my own business. And that's probably when I met you. And I was like, I want to work in an office. And you were probably like, why? Why would you do that? When
Confused. Excuse me.
you're like, come be in my program. And you're like,
Yeah.
you don't need this. And honestly, now I mean, I don't know how far to skip ahead, but I kind of baby stepped my way out of his office and they were so supportive of me the whole way. And in fact, I'm technically still on staff, so that I can get into charts when his patients come to see me now, which is awesome. And the patients love it. They're like, you can look at my labs. I'm like, yes. Um, so uh, they've been really great and I still have a relationship, but I baby stepped my way out as my business grew. And it was a little chaotic because I was there one day a week. I was at an office I was running 2 days a week. And then if someone couldn't see me at one of those times, I was doing like virtual meetings post pandemic. I was doing virtual meetings from home and it was just a little cuckoo. So I finally took the leap and just said, I want to do this on my own, and had established relationships with other providers, both, with that clinic the integrative clinic that I interned in, and then a couple other people around town. Fortunately, like a silver lining to like having low back and hip stuff postpartum is that I've met a lot of providers. I've got PTs and chiropractors and you name it, kind of in my back pocket. So it's been really cool to be able to refer my clients to other providers too. And I think people get the value from that. At least my local people. Some of my clients are virtual and out of state. So
Mm-hmm. Well, I was really excited for our chat today about this because I know that you do have such a wide variety of experience in the way that you've worked with clients, the way that you've gotten clients. I mean, there have been referrals, there have been other practitioners, there have been in person, virtual, all the things. And so I knew this would be a really fun conversation. Also, because it seems so mysterious. People ask a lot, like, what does it look like if you are getting referred by a chiropractor? If you're working in another practitioner's office, like, what does that actually look like? How does it function? And I think that the answer to that is everything's negotiable. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. Everything's negotiable. And it doesn't have to stay static the way that you think it's going to be. Like I kind of loved how you were talking about I did workshops, I taught classes, like I did these other things that I'm guessing in the beginning maybe that wasn't your idea of how that was going to go initially, but it just kind of evolves and where you can add value, you add value. And when you feel like you've outgrown it or you move on, you move on. You never burn the bridge. Like all of these are really good lessons. So I appreciate you sharing all of that. So
yeah,
you and I met, I think, probably around 2022. Would that be when we were in San Diego? We met in person,
I think
um,
so.
which
Yeah,
is the
that
most
sounds about
fun.
right.
Yeah, we were at an NAMP conference, and so we met there in person. I'm sure I did tell you, come on, you got to be in TPN. Let's go. Let's go get your practice rocking even more, which you did. So, I mean, from
Sort
there,
of, but like everything, I have to think about things for like 6 months and
you
get like,
thought about it. You
I
thought
had
about
to
it.
get like
For a while.
75 emails from Andrea. And then I was like, okay, you know what? And I mean, you also had another one of your students independently told me that she was in your program, and who we worked in the same office when I was renting space from a naturopath. And she's like, it's so great, it's so great. And I was like, fine, doing it.
I was so excited when I saw your name come across. I'm like, she's in. She's finally in. So you did get in. You committed. You started working through the process and through your own merits. Not I'm not taking zero credit for it, but you doubled your revenue from the year before to your first year in the program. So how did that happen? Why did that happen? What's like tell us a story.
Um, Gosh, I don't think it's any one thing. There were so many lessons, and still there's so many lessons from your program that I can point to as being factors with that. Um, and let me tell you a few. Like, so one would be simplifying. I hear your like. I've listened to so many of your podcasts, and then so many of like the training, the coaching calls recorded and everything, that it's like I feel like you talk to me all the time. So I can hear your voice saying, however simple you think you've made something, simplify it more, because I promise it. And I needed to hear that, because like a lot of people coming into this job for the first time, imposter syndrome kicks in, and you're trying to prove to yourself and your clients that you know what you're doing. So you want to give them value. And so what you lack in experience, you make up in flyers, right? Like, oh, you're
PDFs. You just make it up.
constipated? I have a flyer on fiber. Like, let me give you this. Let me give you a menu plan. Let me give you an anti-inflammatory foods list. Let me give you this. And people would be very appreciative. And I even think they might think that that would be helpful to them. And then I suspect with a lot of them, those folders would just collect dust in the side of their kitchen, right? So I was overwhelming people with the amount of information I gave them. And I know from our coaching calls that this is not an uncommon story. And so I think simplifying not only in messaging and how I'm interacting with clients, but also in, you know, focusing on one step at a time through the program. Um, yeah.
Oh, that's big. That's really big.
Yeah. I mean,
It
that's,
seems
that's
it
one
seems
thing.
so simple, all puns intended, but it's like that's really is it really is so true. What we make up or what we lack in confidence and experience, we make up for in flyers. That's the greatest thing I've ever heard. It's so true. It's so true.
Um, Another thing too that really helped from coaching, my program at the time anyway, and I don't know what's changed, was very, like I said, focused on the science, which was fabulous, but it was a little more limited in terms of client interaction and building your business. I mean, some of those classes occurred, but it was a little bit of a footnote. And I don't know, honestly, if that's the role the program needs to play to help you
I
get a
don't think
job.
so. Yeah, I don't think so. Can we talk about that for a second? I have strong opinions on this. I feel like it is a footnote in most education curriculums and certifications and, all of the things to talk to you about your business, but it's a footnote at best because that's not what those curriculums are for. That's not the job. The job like they are experts at helping you with the education and the client facing part of it, not the business part, in my opinion.
Right. I do think they could do more if they aren't already, because it's now been like almost 9 years since I was doing this, but the interaction with clients and helping people with the how piece. So that's been a huge part of my focus in the last 2 years. So many of the people who come to see me, the first words out of their mouth when they get on a discovery call is, I think I eat a pretty healthy diet already. So I don't know if I need you. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay. And sometimes they are eating a healthy diet, and sometimes they think they're eating a healthier diet than they are. And we gently work on that later. But it's this how piece of both habit change and logistics. Those are kind of these two areas that I see people get hung up with moving forward. So either it's, well, my work schedule is this, or I'm running kids here at this time. I don't feel like I have time to cook. I don't know how to cook. My family eats differently than me. All of these things that are really some kind of logistical challenges affect almost everybody, right? And then there's the habit pieces, right? And helping people to build new habits. And I do feel like that should be a little more front and center, because ultimately you can give people information all day long, but if they aren't feeling equipped, confident, etc., to act on it and make changes, I mean, I'm not going to be satisfied by just giving you lots of information that then you have to go figure stuff out on your own. Um, so yeah, I think you know, in your program, some of the mindset coaching calls with Jill, I just
Jill.
like, I'm so visual. I know that she has an E on the end.
I know, yeah.
Those were so helpful, and that encouraged me to, when I was due for my, well, I would have done it anyway because I love learning new things, but I enrolled in the health mindset certification last year. Well, it's earlier this year. Um, and that was fabulous. And so it's really helped in terms of guiding how I interact with clients.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, the mindset is it. Like it's the, I think people, we could talk a little bit about this, but I think um, people are overwhelmed with information. There's no shortage of information. There's podcasts and YouTube videos and Google searches and AI tools to give any piece of information that anybody wants. Now, whether it's the right information or not remains to be seen, whether it's the right for their body, for their lifestyle, for, I mean, that all of that is up for debate, but people feel like they have the information. That's not what they're hiring for right now. That's not what they're paying for right now, in my opinion. It's the implementation, it's the support, it's the customization, it's the personalization, it's the accountability, it's the simplifications. Like, you're going to tell me the three things that I need to do, and I don't need to sort through any of this information anymore because I'm already overwhelmed. I already think, to your point, I think I eat pretty healthy. But why am I on this call right now? Right? Like,
Right,
okay, let's talk about that. So
right.
I agree with all of this. The information isn't what people are hiring a nutrition professional or a health coach for in this era. They're just
Yeah,
not. The information's out there. They need help distilling down the right information in these simple steps in the right order and actually implementing it and actually
yeah.
doing it and actually making it work in their life.
Exactly. And I think now for me, some of my challenge in interacting with people is kind of toggling between being the expert and saying, here's what you need to do in certain contexts. And then in other contexts, step back, ask the questions, help people find their own answers. So an
Mm-hmm.
example would be, if someone's coming to see me because they have digestive issues, a lot of what I do are either digestive issues, or I end up working on gut with people who didn't even know that they needed to work on their gut until they came to me for some other reason. But when we're doing things that are more kind of protocol specific, and um, that it's a little bit outside of their frame of experience from before, I am the person who's saying, okay, this is what we're going to do. And this is going to take, this part of this is going to take 8 weeks, or this is going to take 12 weeks, or this is what we're, versus kind of that coaching side of it. And I feel like that's kind of my challenge now, because I'm so accustomed to training being like, you're the expert, just tell people what to do, and just having to pull back. And sometimes it's so easy to just start a client session, and if we didn't have a clear, usually we have clear topics before a call, but maybe that topic has, they've already tackled that, or there's something else that's distracting them. And I always just come back to saying what's working and what's not working, because then you get so much out of that. And it's a easier way of, versus saying, okay, we talked last time about you eating more vegetables, are you doing that? Right? And the first thing people feel is like, uh well, kind of. I'm
Yeah,
like,
not good enough, not the way I'm supposed to. I'm in
right.
trouble. Yeah.
And so I use that a lot. Tell me about your action items from last time. What's working? What's not working? Where can I help? Right. And then it's a lot less pressure. So
Mhm.
looking at these kinds of things, and I think the challenge now, it's like I've learned this, and applying it a little bit, takes time.
So what Kelly's talking about, for people that are listening to this, what Kelly's talking about is a coaching framework that we use in the program that we then say, now use this with your clients. Also, take the pressure off of yourself to know every answer and anticipate everything they're going to say. You don't. You can't. That's not your job. Ask these open-ended questions and let them tell you what isn't working and what they think the solution is. Then we have a starting point. Then let's talk about it, because we believe ourselves. People believe themselves. Like if I tell you this is what's going on, I believe that. Now the ball's in your court, we can have a conversation about it. But if you tell me what's going on, I'm instantly resistant to that. I'm like, I'm not sure. I don't know. That wasn't exactly right. And I feel like I want to clarify that to you. I want to like be a unicorn. I want to be a special snowflake. I want to tell you why the circumstances are the way they are. Versus if you just ask me some open-ended questions that are strategically placed in the conversation, then I will tell you what's going on. And that's the verbatim truth to me. And then we have a place to go. It's just it yeah. I think that's what you're saying, but I just want to clear that up for everybody if you're wondering what
It is. It's
it's like these are
totally
just basic coaching tools that guide a
good.
conversation and take the pressure off of you to feel
Mhm.
like you have to prepare so much, because you can't. And
Yeah,
you will always feel ill prepared and sweaty and am I dropping the ball? Am I dropping the ball? Don't set it up like that. That's not the relationship.
for sure. Exactly.
So good. Okay. So you have all the clients. We haven't really touched on this, but people I know are going to be listening to this and they're like, okay, so I want to hear about her practice. Does she have a niche? Does she only work with a certain clients? She works with them one on one, it sounds like, and that could be in various capacities. So let's talk about your offer a little bit. You do work with one on one clients. Do you have a niche?
I don't have a niche in a formal way where I say no to other people. Um,
I
I
like how
say,
you answer that. That's so good. Yeah, perfect.
well, and I will say this, and I'm saying this specifically because I think it's really important for people to know this. I will say no to oncology nutrition, an oncology client who's actively in treatment for cancer, because it's one of the, I mean, there's always some healthy everybody habits that become the wrong answer with a certain condition. It could be an autoimmune condition, it could be something else. It could be someone's high in, they are sensitive to oxalates or something, and so no, beets aren't good for them. I mean, there's always those exceptions, but in cancer, I do not mess around. There's a lot out there that's great for the rest of us, that while someone's in treatment is not helpful. And there's great oncology nutritionists where that's all they do. So I refer to that. But anybody else pretty much that's either a teen or an adult, the only program I have two programs. I have an adult program and a teen program. I don't market the teen one at all. Still focused on, you know, I'd created the one offer in your program, and I've just stuck with that. And so the teen stuff's out there on my website. And then I have one teenager left, he's 19. But being in that age group with my kids, people just found me. I don't know what it is, but
Mhm.
I love my teen clients when they find me, but I don't actively market that. So I'll talk about my adult program, which is one-to-one, mostly women is who I'm speaking to, but easily half my clients are men at any given time. I have a framework that I created during your program. I think what this was a game changer for me in terms of how I think of my own business, because I'm a big believer, and this was part of my nutrition education too, is that we're all different, that we all are a little bit of our own unicorn.
Yeah.
um, and I mean, biologically there is a lot of variability between people, and then people have different lifestyles and different dietary preferences and all the things, right? So I really care a lot about helping people in the way that's best possible for them. But I learned through working with you that you can create a framework that's essentially the same and operate within that. And that's
Mhm.
what I've done. I have, and it came together so easily because I was able, by the time I created the framework, I could already look back and go like, what have my people needed? Where have they been successful? Where have they not been successful? What mistakes have I made? And so I have a 3-month program with 3 areas of focus in the framework, which is nutritional, like foundations, which is everything from like, you know, oh, it looks like you're not eating enough protein, or let's get you drinking more water, to helping with the logistics of, you work till 8 o'clock every night. How are we gonna do dinner? So the basics. And then the second bucket is nutrition therapy, my education, supporting people in a targeted way for whatever their goals are, health conditions, whatever's kind of, up at the surface as most important to them. And then the third one is support for lifestyle and habit change. So through the intake process, that discovery call, the intake form that they fill out before we ever meet, and then that first meeting, usually something outside of nutrition bubbles up to the surface as needing the most TLC. So it could be sleep, it could be stress, it could be not getting outside. Um, but let's say somebody has, it could be movement, but what if someone has a great workout routine and that has no, like, they don't need motivation, they're doing a mix of all the things. We may never talk about exercise again because it's not what they need, but their stress is through the roof, right? um, so we work on those lifestyle and habit types of things all throughout. And in that framework, I always start with the basics, the nutrition foundation piece. But depending on the person, their personality, what their goals are, we may get into nutrition therapy right away. And in other cases, we kind of baby step there, um, depending on how much time they really kind of need to work on the basics.
Mhm. How many of your clients, if you just had to just guess, how many of them continue after 3 months?
Somewhere between, at any given time, like 50 and 70%.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I think that that's another misconception for people. And especially as they're listening to this, they're like, how does she get it all done in 3 months? You don't. You don't. You make progress in 3 months. You establish a relationship in 3 months. You get habits in 3 months. You have trust that's built in 3 months. And you have an open invitation to continue for another 3 months.
Yeah.
So,
And I'm still working on how to have that conversation and um, have people continue that I know would benefit from continuing. And yeah, it's gone well. And
50 to 75% of people are continuing. I think you're doing a great job.
yeah. Well, thanks. Yeah, and I love when people do continue, because usually there is more to work on, right? We all underestimate how quickly we're going to get things accomplished with our health.
And our business and all of the things. and our schedule and our calendar. And I'm so ambitious sometimes when I look at my calendar and then I'm like, what was I thinking? Like, what? In what world did I think that every single thing was going to work perfectly and there would be no interruptions and there would be no traffic and there would be no anything? We're just so ambitious sometimes. It's funny.
Yes. Yeah.
Hilarious. Okay, so a little just pointer for anybody that would like that. I'm not saying that you need to change anything about what you're doing because I think 50 to 75% renewal rate is fantastic. But my suggestion would be starting on the discovery call when you lay out the offer to saying, I work with clients for a minimum of 3 months. And then you talk about your 3 month package. And it already plants the seed of like, oh, this is the starting point and there's something beyond this. Whether you ever talk about what that looks like or not, and you probably won't until a little bit later on, their subconscious mind is preparing for more.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do that. And I think that that's helpful. And I try to mention that I say exactly what is the way it is. I say, um, somewhere between 50 and 75% of my clients continue to see me for 6 months or longer. And I tell them why, that usually it's either someone who really appreciates the accountability, or it's somebody who might have a more complex health condition, doing gut repair things. Some of these things take a long time. Because I have a couple clients, I have one client that's going on 3 years with me. I have a client that's going on a year and a half. And unfortunately, they're not super healthy. But then I've had other clients that have gone longer just because they love to learn and optimize and they like the support. So it
So
looks
this
different.
is a great question. Okay, let's dig into that. If these clients that have worked with you for a long time and they aren't at optimal health yet, but they continue to pay you and they continue to work with you, why is that? What benefit are they getting outside of the like health outcome that's the ideal that we might assume would be the only driver there? Why do they keep
Well,
going?
I'm thinking about one client, the one who I said has been with me for about 3 years. She has a couple different autoimmune conditions, and she already, I'm an AIP coach also. That's autoimmune protocol, which I honestly don't get a ton of those clients. I mean, a lot of my clients have autoimmune conditions, but not necessarily wanting to do AIP, which for those who don't know, that's an elimination diet, and you're doing gut repair and things like that in the meantime. But it's a pretty rigorous elimination diet, for 30 to 90 days, and some people aren't totally up for it. Interestingly enough, this client that I've had for 3 years did AIP on her own before she ever found me, and found me because she wanted help with reintroductions. And I was like, oh, this is easy. I don't even have to be the bad guy and tell you what we're not eating. So for her, it's been, I am going to get back to your answer, but part of the journey for her has been that she's pretty symptomatic with one of these autoimmune conditions. And so they stop and start and they stop and start in terms of progress on
Mhm.
reintroducing foods. And I think she also saw, she needs to find a new doctor because he moved, but she also saw a functional medicine MD who she really liked. And he and I never met each other, but we were sort of collaborative in the sense that he'd be like, well, what does Kelly want you to do about this? And I'd be like, well, what does Dr. Danny say about that? And I think in large part, she likes having the reassurance that, like, as she navigates, one of her autoimmune conditions is celiac, and it's pretty severe in the sense that, some people are more reactive to others if they're exposed to gluten. um, her system can go off the rails, and it sucks, right? So it's kind of all the things with her in terms of both the nuts and bolts of, like, okay, let's we've done gut repair, we've done some reintroductions, we're still working on others. I help her troubleshoot things that are going on with her health, but then I think I'm also working a lot with her on the coaching side of some of the lifestyle things that really matter for somebody with an autoimmune condition, like getting enough sleep, like managing stress, gentle movement if they're exhausted. We come back to some of the same themes. And honestly, it's interesting that we're talking about this because I sometimes wonder why
Why
she
does she
still
keep
wants
paying
me.
me? Yeah. But it's so great. But she, like, think about that. That's why I asked the question. It's a very leading question because I want all of us to think about that. The intangibles. Like, she has accountability with you that you maybe don't appreciate, that is a security blanket to her in some way, that she's willing to keep paying you.
Yeah,
And like, how incredible is that you can offer that?
it is awesome. And it kind of feeds a little bit into the price drama that a lot of us have in this business. That sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I'm still, but I also know from my own life when I've had, I mean, I don't work with any providers that are on kind of like a package like me, but the people that I know are there for me, this pelvic PT and this other PT and this acupuncturist, I I can't tell you how many times I've had a flare with my back or hips, and I think like, and this goes way back. I'm very fortunate, knock on wood, that I those kind of injuries that I've had are well managed and I'm strong and I really don't have major issues anymore. But I used to get a little freaked out because it was pretty rough for a while. And I would make an appointment with my chiropractor. And like the minute once I knew that I could get into her in 2 days,
You felt fine.
I felt fine. I felt fine because like she already had me. And of course I hadn't even gone into her set foot in her office yet.
Mhm.
So there is something to be said for that.
Yeah, there is.
That
And
support.
so the reason I wanted to ask that question is I just think it's so, I love the behind the scenes that we're doing here on what it's actually like working with clients. And my next question is going to be, how is that different than you thought it would be working with clients? So you might want to just like start thinking about that a little bit. But the drama that I see with a lot of people is like, I have to get someone this very specific results within this very specific amount of time, and that's stressful. And it has to be the right niche of person. It has to be the perfect offer, the perfect package for perfect duration. I have to have the perfect process that everybody will fit into, and that's not possible. Like, none of that is possible. So pressure, none of that is even possible or necessary. And the reality is that someone is going to say yes to you, and probably many people are going to say yes to you for reasons you don't truly understand, and you support them in ways that maybe don't even feel significant to you, but it is to them. And what an incredible opportunity that we have to do that. Like, let the magic happen. Let people keep paying you. Let people keep working with you. Let them talk about that to others. And for 3 years, you've helped this woman. And to you, maybe it doesn't look like she has this, like, these incredible health results. She's not vibrantly healthy with no symptoms. But think of where she would be had she not had you for the last 3 years. I think how different her life would be, and her experience, and her stress level probably around it. So the intangibles, all that to say, the intangibles
For
are.
sure, for sure. I think that that's really a key point because it's easy for us to measure our worth and effectiveness by like checking a box that and sometimes it does. I do get a big like dopamine hit when a client who was A1C of 5.9 worked with me and they've retested and now it's 5.4. I mean, like, that's like one of those concrete things that you're like, I helped you do that. But
Mhm.
I feel like there's very few of those, way fewer than I expected. And so, I mean, I think that's a good lesson of what we do is to not measure our effectiveness by those kinds of things. I mean, take them as, happy outcomes when they occur, but to
Mhm.
not sort of use those things as like, because sometimes you help people do all the right things. I have a client right now. I'm helping her do all the right things with her diet, and her A1C is exactly the same, but she's also on prednisone and she's also on a post breast cancer medication, and both of those can raise blood sugar, and she's stressed. So I'm like, yeah, I but to your point, like knowing that they still show up, that they still ask your opinion, that they still share wins with you, you're
Mhm.
like, oh, yeah. they're
And then
getting
the wins
something.
that people share can be so much different than what we expect it to be. And the things that people are excited about and the things that they're like, this was amazing. Let me tell you about it. Like
Yes,
left field. Okay. All right. Amazing. And how humbling is that too?
totally. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love it.
So what does surprise you about working with clients? Because you are, I mean, you worked with a lot of clients and you continue to work with a lot of clients. You're pretty full. So I know that your experience here is helpful for people. What surprised you about getting in the nitty gritty of creating protocols and supporting people with habit change and lifestyle and managing complex conditions and all of these things that you do so well that you just are nonchalant about, by the way, but we're gonna celebrate all of it. What surprises you about that from what you
Um,
thought it would be like?
gosh, I'm always surprised how much like really smart people don't know about some really basic things, which
Mm,
reinforces that message of simplifying and starting where you start. And and then other people are like, well, obviously, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, well, the last guy did, that was not obvious to the last guy. Um, um, so what surprises me, oh gosh, I think kind of what we were just talking about too, the things that people find benefit from working with me aren't always the things that um, I am kind of ruminating. Well, that's too strong of a word, maybe, but the things that I'm thinking, like, gosh, I really have to help them do this. And we're doing that, but maybe it's going a little slower. But this thing over here is going really well for them. And they're super excited and they want to share it with you. And um, yeah, I think
yeah.
that that's, I think it's just surprising how different people are too, and how different, whew, how this is where that mindset comes back to, is how they're going to change and get things done. And some people do want to be told what to do. Um, but going back to that resistance that people have about being told what to do, if we think about it, if we break that down, they're still choosing to come see you and they're still choosing to put you in the driver's seat, right? And say, I just want you to tell me what to do about this. So that's ultimately they're in control, right?
Mhm,
Um, and they've made that decision versus me saying, I'm going to tell you what to do and you need to follow it exactly what the way I say, right?
mhm.
Um, but just that the variety of personalities and what works um, surprises me. And I think part of the challenge in that is knowing when you just need to say, no, this is
Talk
how,
about it. Yeah.
well, how much do I make myself the chameleon and like fill in wherever you need and kind of psychoanalyze you, which is not my training, and figure out how best to help you? Because that's what my inclination is, to always like be thinking of like, how can I morph myself to help this person in the way that they need it? And I think as time goes on, I'm getting a little better at just, sometimes we're going to click more than others, but it doesn't mean I can't still be helpful to them and that they're
Mhm,
not going to still get results.
mhm.
Which, by the way, and then I'll let you move on to the next thing, but um, when I'm talking with clients on a discovery call, I use some of the language that you taught about getting results. And the one thing I feel really great about that I can, maybe there's more than one thing, but I'm going to point
I
out
was
one
gonna say the
thing
one thing. Yes, right. Uh-huh.
I feel really great about is that all of my clients get results. I've never had anybody say, this didn't do anything for me. What a waste of money. I mean, they might be thinking that and not telling me, but I don't think so. And so I use that a lot, is that, and I think actually people appreciate that. It doesn't always come up on a discovery call, but when they ask, like, well, what can I expect? Like, what does this look like? And I say, you know what? I cannot promise X. I cannot promise you're not going to have any more pain with this, or that your blood sugar will come down to that, or that your gut will be perfect. But I can tell you that my clients all get results and feel much better when we finish than when we started. And sometimes that takes 3 months, sometimes it's 6 months or longer. I mention that. And then I think another phrase that I've really liked is mentioning that so much is possible.
Mm, say
That's from
more.
you. That's from you. Do you remember that?
I sure. Sure. Yes.
Uh,
Of course.
well, I
So
don't remember the last time you said it, but that has really resonated with me, saying so much is possible, but you're not. I really flinch, and I think people are educated and gun shy about health programs and diets and all these things that make these sweeping promises um, that can't be fulfilled necessarily. So,
mhm. Yeah, which is a huge problem. And so because of that, we are just like, gosh, don't want to overpromise, don't want to overpromise, want to give all the disclaimers, 1 million disclaimers, want to really protect myself, which comes across to a potential client is like, oh, they don't believe I can do this. They don't think this is possible. They're not this. I feel their hesitation. Now I'm hesitating. It's how we experience that. So how much we can shrink people's possibility with trying to, you know, to never overpromise. There's just
exactly.
so much that
Right.
goes into that. I feel that so much. So I don't know in what context. I'm sure I've said this in lots of different ways, but I will just clarify. Like I do feel like that's a huge problem. We have to be confident, and you have to be willing to tell someone, "I can help you." Full
Yes.
stop. I can help you. The impact of that for people to hear and to experience and to sit with and to percolate with this is possible. We don't know what the butterfly effect is that in people's lives, but planting that seed I think is super important.
Yeah. I say that a lot, and every time I say it, I still go on the inside,
Mhm.
but then it works.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing. It's just amazing how that works. Okay, well, before we wrap up, is there anything else that you want to share with somebody that's just getting started out or that is hearing this podcast and any takeaways that you want to give them as somebody who's been doing this for 10 years and doing it very successfully and helping more
Um,
people?
don't be afraid to raise your prices. Um, and it stays messy at all phases of business. And I still have to remind myself that, because there's this kind of like internal voice that's like, well, gosh, you should have had this figured out by now. And then you
Yeah.
should have, and the thing is, then you do figure something out, but you don't even give yourself credit for it because you're on to the next challenge. And
Mhm.
so knowing that it's going to be messy and that that's okay, that we don't, we just don't have all the answers, not only with like a health condition, but just I've never gotten to a point in my business where I'm like, oh, okay, now this is just like this well-oiled machine and I'm just kicked back and doing the thing.
Mm-mm. Me
Um,
either. Either. Nor would we really want to. I
right.
think people that are drawn to this work and to being an entrepreneur in the first, we don't actually want that. We love the next level, that like the personal development aspect of it. That like, oh, okay, if this was possible, well, then like, what would the next thing look like? We love that. We do.
For sure. And I think, one insight I had, I've had a couple, I've never been formally diagnosed with ADHD, but supposedly that's me. And um, I don't know. I feel like everybody has ADHD now for all these reasons, but what I heard this neurologist talking about on a show was how that seeing something that's got a quote diagnosis can be always seen as a negative, and that people with ADHD tend to have a lot of passion. They're entrepreneurial, they're creative, they're motivated, they're energetic. And I'm like, oh yeah. And I feel that, and I know, and so it's kind of a cool way of seeing things. Getting my calendar right and not dashing, you know, here and there and trying to be on time, like those are challenges for me. But there's all of this other stuff that we don't give ourselves credit for
Mhm.
in the entrepreneurial space, and being, like you said, there's a lot of creative people and passionate people doing this work. Thank goodness.
Totally. Thank goodness. Well, I like that as an ending point, but I want to know, how do people find you? especially those that are listening to this right now and they're thinking, she works with teenagers. Nobody works with teenagers. How do I, can I refer to her? So tell everybody where they
It
can find you.
totally helps to have a teenager to not like be like scared of them.
Right. Yeah. So
So
how do people do this? How do they connect with you? What does it look like? Let's go.
so my website is eatwellgrow.com, and I I mean, all of my information is there. If you go there, you can book a call
She's a
with me if you're a fit.
beautiful website. Yep. Book a
Oh,
call.
thank you.
Okay.
Um, and I don't, I have sort of pretty dormant Instagram accounts, and then, but you won't see me posting lots of stuff about nutrition on Facebook or Instagram. I just don't. I decided for me that that was a waste of my time. I am on LinkedIn. That has been very valuable for me. And coming back to, I think I've told you this in the past, Andrea, that Olivia's um, the interviews you've done with her and some of
Mhm.
her kind of bullets on LinkedIn have been really helpful for me. And I've made meaningful connections and gotten clients, lots of networking too with other providers. I find LinkedIn really helpful. Um,
I
so
believe
yeah.
those are episodes 98 and 99 of this podcast, I believe, for people that want to go back and check that out.
And the nice thing about being on LinkedIn is you don't get all the toxic BS that's on like your social media feeds. If you're, you think you're going to Instagram to post something about food and then you're in a rabbit hole about something that has nothing to do with work.
Yeah. Yep. That is the plague right there.
So yeah, and I'm very affected by that. And oh my gosh, can I just say some really off the topic thing? I feel like I'm so happy that AI slop is all over social media now because it's making me not look at it as much. I'm kind of like,
Oh, so
eh.
good. The journalist is like, I hate this stuff. I hate it. It's so robotic and disgusting. It's
Oh,
the slop. It is the slop. Yeah. So it's repelling you. I love
it
it.
is. It's repellent. I just, yeah. Hopefully, I like meditate instead. Sometimes that works. Sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. The pendulum has to swing like all the way to where it is right now, where it's just ew. And
Yeah,
then it comes back somewhere. Oh my gosh. For
yeah.
our next conversation, we should revisit this and do another episode on copywriting and not throwing out AI slop and messaging and that kind of stuff. Because I know you're the genius of that. That would be a good
Well,
one.
learning all the time. Yes.
Learning all the time. All right. So, all the people need to send their referrals to you for the teens and the adults alike. Just thank you. Thank you so much for sharing
Thank
today openly
you.
about what has worked for you and what hasn't, and all of your experience. It is so fun to have these conversations about really getting into the behind the scenes of working with clients in particular. I think that's so
Yeah,
mysterious for people. It's like, but what is it actually like? And your honesty about it does feel messy, but you can have a framework that works for everybody and
totally.
figure it out and do it anyway. Top
Well,
notch.
and it's for us to even talk about it out loud. Like it's helpful again for me. Like all the time, we never stop needing to hear somebody else echo what we already know, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can I really quick? You asked me something about niche, and I don't know that I fully answered it. I have been sort of taking almost everybody. However, what I have done recently is get a little more focused on my messaging towards certain niches. And it doesn't mean I turn away clients outside of those areas, but I'm working to refine my messaging better because I think I'm still working a little too hard to get new clients in the door. I'm like 95% referrals, and I want more clients, not a ton more, but I want more clients. And so you and I have talked a little bit about the quality of messaging. So I'm really relying on, in terms of health things people might bring to the table, um, high blood sugar, anything to do with perimenopause. Nobody has ever come to me to say, I want help with perimenopause, but they have different things going on that they come to me and I go, oh, this is a symptom of perimenopause. And they don't even know it.
Mm-hmm.
And then things with gut health. I never, ever wanted to do any of this gut health business, but I realize how important it is, and that's really the core of what I do, is help people with gut health, whether they realize they need it or not.
Mhm.
So that's what my messaging is around, and it's also around helping people understand this how piece, believing that now is the time is right,
Yeah,
understanding that they don't have to wait, they don't have to get ready to get ready,
and they can do it, and they can do it now.
and that's it.
It's so good. It's so good. Okay,
Thank
Kelly.
you, Andrea.
No, thank you. This is going to be the first conversation of many, I'm sure, on the podcast. So thank you for coming on. I so appreciate you. Thank you.
I I appreciate everything that you've taught me, and that I continue to learn. So it's the best. You're the
Thank
best.
you.